Hello and welcome back. Today we're here with the 1998 Jeep Wrangler, and I just recently bought it, drove it for an hour and a half from where I bought it, and it died literally in my driveway, and it got me stuck in Chipotle. Now this video is going to be walking through different ways that I'm going to troubleshoot and try to figure out what was wrong with this, and maybe something in the future that I'd like to do with this. I figured this is what's going to take a lot of my time, so I'll just bring you guys along with me. As mentioned in the introduction, I did have some issues with the Jeep right after getting it home. I drove it for about 100 miles and it was fine. There was a weird issue with the fuel economy, but I'm sure it was fine when I would get it home and I could look at it closer. Although when I got it home, it immediately died and then I ran into a bunch of problems. A couple of things I thought were the issues is that it might have had a fuel delivery issue, and that turned out not to be the case. However, there was some work that needed to be done in there just because the fuel tank had a bunch of debris in there and the vacuum lines were not hooked up. So in hindsight, I didn't need to replace the fuel pump, but I'm happy I did anyways. The next thing I did was replace the crankshaft position sensor. These are a common part that goes bad in TJs and can cause issues very similar to mine. So I figured I'd just replace it and see what happens. This wasn't the case, so that's fine, not too worried about it. And then I noticed on my scanning tool, I was having weird voltage issues with the oxygen sensors. So I figured with the fuel smelling rich, and I was having weird miles per gallon issues, and maybe the fuel ratio was just, and it would not allow the engine to continue running. So I replaced the oxygen sensors and took it for a little trip. I did notice there was some stutter issues first, but this was a huge success. Been having it run for a long period of time in between weird mishaps. So I believe this was my issue. I'd like to mention that when I first saw this TJ, I was amazed at the quality at the frame and the fact that it has the 4-liter 6-cylinder engine. Those things are pretty decently built, so as long as I had those two things, like a good frame that I can maintain and take good care of, this thing might last a really long time despite it being from 1998 and the engine being from 2002. If you guys had any ideas for different mods I could do, I would definitely like some suggestions. This is relatively new to me, so we'll see where it goes from there. I know I do eventually want to get rid of the body lift it has on it and get a suspension lift. I just don't know how big I want to go. And I do want a slightly wider look to it, so I might need a new rim with an offset on it, and I might be getting BFG KO2 tires. But those things are coming down the line. There's still a lot of other things that I'd like to get ready before I start doing stuff like that. And I'm just trying to get this thing roadworthy. Alright, so after a couple days of troubleshooting things and swapping out different parts, it did seem that swapping out my oxygen sensors did fix my problem. Now, on these TJs, apparently they are very sensitive to the oxygen sensor depending on like what year you have or what engine you have. So this part just gonna kind of show you what I did to find the correct ones, even though I'm not 100% sure where this engine came from because it's not with this body, because the body is 98 and this engine the 2002, and I'll show you where I found all that information. I'll also link it down in the description below and just show you how I got this general information. And now what we're going to do is just take a quick look on inside the engine. Right now I am on the passenger side of the vehicle. So just on this side, I already rigged a light, and if you want to get the information on what year your engine is, because I did and mine was swapped in, there is this little like rectangular marking that basically is the engine code or like when it was made and stuff like that. Depending on what you have, it will tell you what it is. For example, I don't know how well it comes up, but I think mine's 02 for MX. So the first number is what year it was made. This was, since it's 2, be 2002. I think the second one is what month it was made, I think. But I'll show that code and how it breaks down in the description, and feel free to follow that. In addition, I also have a list to the different spark plugs I use for that. And so after all that, it runs. I took it on 2 long 100-mile trips, both down to other areas, and just definitely drove it for multiple hours just to see if it was fixed. I do smell gas just because one of my oxygen sensors cannot be replaced, or at least I need to fix it and rewire it. But 3 out of the 4, not so bad. So thank you. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. If you're okay with this different kind of pace of content, I know I normally make 3D printing videos and, you know, cosplay stuff, but I also like working on cars and stuff like that, so this also might come in here. So thank you. I hope you have a good one.